Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Leafs Columbus tonight, one of 16 games in the NHL. Every team in the league playing tonight. Bryan Hayes, Yodog, Jeff O'Neill, Craig Button around the table. Mike Johnson will join us from Columbus ahead of the game tonight on TSN 4. And then we got Craig's List coming up later in the hour. A little role play level of concern with Craig playing the role of certain GMs around the league. This will be very exciting stuff. We'll get to that around 5:30. Confirm and deny still to come later this afternoon. Leafs coming off a really impressive win last night and against a key opponent, against a main rival in Tampa. And I thought there's a number of different things that stood out to me last night. But William Nylander is on fire right now. And what he's doing is he's driving his own line to the point where it seems pretty clear. Like Matthews is going to be the man on his line. Now he's got Marner with him, and Marner's more than capable of being the man himself. And the two of them will feed off each other. I thought Matthew Knies was outstanding last night too, and I want to get to that momentarily. But everyone's always said through the history of the league, the best players make their teammates better and can drive lines, etc. And that's what Willie is clearly doing. Like you look at the way he operates on Saturday night, last night, I think he's had like 13 shots on goal registered over the last two games. He's putting up points. It's very clear Max Domi and Bobby McMann are going over the boards, and they're like, we're feeding off this guy. Like this is his line, and we're going to feed off him. And I thought he was unreal last night.
When the comparison came out with the contract and it was David Pastrnak, my initial thought process, probably along with a lot of other people, was this guy can't carry Pasternak's bag into the rink because it's just a different league. It's a different animal. But this sample size, and it's not a very big one, I played a lot of games at right wing in the NHL, and I think that's as good as you can play right wing in the league. Every time you're on the ice, you have the puck, you're dancing, you're creating opportunities for yourself to have success. Unbelievable shot, breakaways, creating. That's as good as you can play right wing. And I don't want to go bonkers on this, but that segment of games he's played, he wasn't very good in the first game.
First couple of games, he wasn't great.
And then he snapped out of it, and that's as good as you can play right wing. I'm sorry.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to take it from you who played right wing. I mean, bottom line is for William Nylander, let's go back 2 years. He was really good 2 seasons ago.
And he's had segments and seasons where it's been really good, but I think that's the best I've seen him play.
Which is really, to think about, that means he's still ascending, right? And he's new contract, not resting on his laurels. He's an impact player. And I think with him and Matthews and Marner, they have 3 guys that can impact the game significantly. And, we talked about Matthews and Marner killing penalties, so they can do it. William Nylander does it with an ease, but with an unbelievable level of confidence. Like, William, this is who I am. I'm going out to play. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And, you want, okay, Max, you can play. Bobby McMann, let's go. Like, he's just going to go and play. And 3 impact players on the team.
Yeah, and it really
front.
is massively significant when you, like, Max Domi's a good player. I think Max has played really well early in the year. I've really liked his game. And Bobby McMann was a healthy scratch opening night. Didn't even play. Didn't have a good camp. But now you talk about seizing an opportunity. You go out there with those 2 guys, and you know what you're supposed to do. Go to the net, win battles, chase down a forecheck. And if you can put McMann and Domi and have an elevated line because of that third guy who we're talking about here, just makes a coach's life like so much easier to balance a lineup.
If you're Bobby McMann, you want to be in a situation where star players have different conversations with coaches, as we all know. You want William Nylander to say to Craig Berube, you got to keep, if Bobby McMann dips a little bit, please just keep, because I really like having him there, that physical presence. So he has another great opportunity to say, these are my guys that I like going on the ice.
Same thing with Knies on the top line.
Yep.
Take advantage.
Well, the guy that to me is just like, I don't think he's going to find a place here. It's Nick Robertson. He's just not.
He's not moving into that top 6 right now.
Well, he's never going to move into that top 6, mm-hmm. and he's not a bottom 6 guy. So where are you going to play him?
Yeah, I don't know.
I know they he's waiver eligible. Okay, like you lose players sometimes, and sometimes it's not because Nick doesn't have ability or talent or whatnot. Just not a fit here. I don't think he's a fit here anymore. I think his. Do
you think when Yarncroc returns,
I think his best before date has come and gone with the Leafs. That doesn't mean he can't go somewhere else and have success. I don't think he's a fit here anymore. I don't think he's a fit.
Yeah, I think that is going to come to a head at some point. Like when Yarncroc is available, he's going to play.
Yeah,
like he's going to likely find a spot. And I like Pacioretty's game last night.
Yep.
Pacioretty, I don't think you can count on playing every single night.
No.
He's going to come in and out of the lineup.
He was made aware of that when he was taken out of the lineup, where it's like, if you're not going to give it, you're not going to go out there.
Right.
So don't think it's.
But he's physical still, Max. Like he threw a couple of hits last night. He can still skate. Yeah, I think you're onto something there, because you look at the scenario, that top six right now, who are you pushing out? And Matthew Knies just keeps growing and growing and growing, man. I thought his game last night, like he stood out.
Remember the
among
comparison I
game.
gave you, what he should want to be and can be? Chris
Kreider, yes.
Chris Kreider, just a powerful guy that skates and goes to the net. That's what he
Even
looked
the
like
goal he scored last night, like that's just a bullet through the 5-hole. Like it's an aggressive, like this is getting buried.
Compliment
And he did that last night.
for Matthews and Marner.
Yeah.
You know, I always bring up Pascal Dupuis and Chris Kunitz. Like, you know, somebody's putting that up on the whiteboard to play with Crosby. They were a great line because they understood. You're talking about being smart and playing with other. Matthew Knies knows how to play with those two guys.
Yeah, he's looked very good early in the season. All right, Leafs Columbus tonight on TSN. Let's head down there and catch up with our TSN hockey analyst Mike Johnson, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Bobby McMann and Matthew Knies. Do you like how would you handicap the chance that those two stay in the top six for the remainder of the season?
I think for Matthew Knies, very, very likely, because he has shown that he can play with everyone. And that even when, I think you just said it, Hayes, even when he's maybe not scoring points or scoring goals, he still does a lot of good things for those guys. He's big, he's strong, he knows how to forecheck. He makes enough good plays for the puck that if he leaves Matthew's line for whatever reason, he'll go to whatever is perceived the next scoring line, which right now is clearly Max Domi's line. So I'd say Knies, very comfortable saying he will be a top 6 for the rest of the year. McMann, I still think it's, not as guaranteed. Right now it works really well with the guys he's playing with, but, if Tavares goes in the middle and Nylander goes to the right, is McMann the right guy to play with those two? That's where maybe you look at different options, but he also is learning to understand who he is, how he needs to play, and how that works in the NHL. The only difference between the two of them, I think, is Matthew Knies has a bit more vision in his game, where McMann is very much a straight line guy. Skates really fast, powerfully, shoots really hard, but maybe doesn't see all the plays that might be out there, which is fine. Not everyone does. And that might be the one more limiting factor in him being a top 6 guy for a guaranteed locked in for the rest of the year.
Johnny, what are your thoughts on the dump-ins and retrievals? I think they've been highly successful, and the first goal last night was a great example of that. Talk to me about it.
Well, I mean, I think when you hear straight line hockey from
you hate saying that. You don't even like saying that.
It sounded like he was like cringing when he said
like
that.
it's pathetic.
Straight line
hockey
every time.
sucks.
Yes, exactly. It's tough to mutter out.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's good that's what they're headed to. And right now, I'm sure you would know this, but they're sort of like a top 10 team in the league for cycle chances created and forecheck chances created. And I think that's not what he wants to focus on solely, but recognize that when the situation requires it, we can still go create offense that way. Like, it's not like it's just giving the puck away and giving up on your shift if you have to dump it in. You can give it up in a smart way, go get it back, and still find a way to create offense while helping yourself defensively. And I think this is where the flip side of that coin. So we could talk about the forecheck chances, and you're right. They've created several over the course of this season already. But the fact of the matter is, in rush chances against, which is directly correlated to how well you manage to puck up the ice, they're top 5 in the league. They weren't there last year. And that's the difference, right? Because you can still create offense. As you mentioned, we focus on the offense. But what it really does, it allows you to set up your defense. It's like not giving up fast break points in basketball, right? If you make them go through a half-court defense, it slows everyone down. It's the same sort of idea. And it's working very well where the defense is getting much better, or the rush chance defense is much better. And they're still showing they can create offense, which gets more buy-in from all the top players like Jeff O'Neill to stick with it, because you'll get chances that way.
Mike, from the beginning of the season, you talked about that the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to have to find a way to create offense differently. So when it comes to playoff time, when the ice is shrunk and time is reduced, that becomes really essential. Is that not exactly what you're talking about right now, situational?
Yeah. And like situational specific, Craig, exactly that. And it's not so much that, the forecheck game doesn't work in the playoffs. It's hard to do. But more than that, if you rely largely on rush game and turnovers, that's what goes away in the playoffs because everyone's paying so much closer attention to how they manage the puck. So the opposition is not giving you chances to, get those rush chances, get those odd man rushes that the top players thrive on. And they got to learn to be patient and trust that they'll get what they need a different way. That's exactly it. And I think this is a year-long process. There'll be some ebbs and flows, good moments, bad moments, hot streaks, cold streaks. But I think it's all in preparation for the team to get to the playoffs, not have to change their game, not have to adapt their game to something that looks different in the playoffs, and be more prepared to be successful offensively when they get there.
What did you make of Ekman-Larsson versus Guentzel last night and his kind of reverse hit that cost him a fine? He got fined $5,000 today, which is the maximum under the CBA. In the neutral zone last night, Guentzel's kind of reaching for the puck, and he stops up and pops him. What did you make of that hit? But just in general, those two kind of battling all night, and obviously it seemed like Ekman-Larsson got the upper hand.
So first off, there's a reason why they're both really good, and part of that reason is they do battle. Like Guentzel's a slighter player. The reason he's so good is because he gets in those kind of battles. And I think for Ekman-Larsson, I think the Toronto fans are having their eyes open to how he's played with a sort of a sneaky heavy stick and sneaky greasy. And I mean that as a compliment, where he's more physical than you anticipate. Now, the thing last night, Hayes, that was interference. So that's why he got fined, right?
They always are, Johnny. I think reverse hits with the guy is just chasing down a puck. I think it's interference every time. You have no chance.
Okay, so this, Joe. Okay, we'll have this conversation because I completely disagree. If I have the puck and you're coming to hit me, it's on my stick, right? You're here, you come, and I give you the Forsberg, I give you the Lindros, whoever you want to say, and I hit you as you come to hit me or get in my vicinity. That's not interference. In my mind, I have the puck. I'm allowed to go wherever I want with it. I don't have to not stop because you're coming towards me. That's not my responsibility. As long as I have the puck, then I can do whatever I want. And that includes stop and bump into you when you're not ready for it because I am touching it. I am in control and allowed to go wherever I want. Now, if I don't have it yet, if it's gotten away from me, then I'm with you. Interference, that's what Ekman-Larsson did. Guentzel was reaching for it. He didn't have it. He stopped up short. He hammered him hard. That's interference. That's against the rules, penalty, fine, whatever. But I've had this debate with different people, and a lot of people think what you do, like it's always interference. But in my mind, why can't I stop if I have the puck? Why do I have to keep going just because you're chasing me? So I think if you have it, it's okay, but a lot of people don't.
I guess what I'm thinking about is almost like a 50-50 situation where almost no one is declared to have possession of the puck, and some guy just greases somebody with the ass to the chest move.
That was last night, largely. It was kind of an open puck. I don't think Ekman-Larsson had possession necessarily.
I guess I just view the physicality of the game as like you can be physical on the puck carrier, but it's like unsuspecting for the guy approaching the puck carrier.
Well, how can you be unsuspecting when you have the puck and you're going to hit him? And it's like a running back. When the running back has the football and he's running and the guy's coming up to tackle him, what the running back can't deliver a blow?
He's trying to do that.
But just because he's coming up, like you can deliver. We see the running back just bury a defensive player. And I think that if to your point, Mike, if you have the puck and somebody's coming to try, you better be prepared that the guy's going to provide some resistance, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think Peter Forsberg got into that place where I used to go to Peter Forsberg when he had the puck, and I would slow down before I get there because I'm like, he's going to hit me. Like I gotta get ready because he's going to hit me even though he has it. Oh, I think you're right though. In those gray areas, which is where the game is largely played, where no one really has it. Did Ekman-Larsson touch it? Did Guentzel touch it? Then it is, it's a greasy play. But there's value in grease.
Yes, there is.
Like,
the Leafs will take it.
Value in being chippy. And don't you think, Hayes? Like I was on social media last night. I was watching the game. People were loving the fact that there was a physicality. That in the collisions, the Toronto guys seem to be standing up a bit more. They don't care that Max Domi takes a penalty late in the game and whatever goes after Asimon, whoever it was. Like there's part of an identity that even though you may take penalties, even though they're against the rules, like I don't think the team necessarily minds that there's an element of this. And they probably went up to, whether it's Reeve or Ekman-Larsson or Lawrence or Tanev, all bring that sort of physicality in different ways.
Yes, and it was very clear last night because it looked by the end like Tampa was like, just get us out of here. We play tomorrow. And the Leafs were like, we play 2 and we're leading, but we're still going to try to play physically. We'll take a chip off you. We'll take a piece if we can. We still don't know who's playing tonight. If Joseph Woll is going to go or Dennis Hildeby. That has not been announced yet. We believe Berube will be speaking momentarily.
My sources say the big man's going to play. It won't be Woll.
So Hildeby's going to go tonight.
It's going to be Hildeby's.
Okay.
And then
is
maybe
there reasoning
Woll,
for that?
St. Louis, hometown guy, back-to-back is not ideal for travel and preparation and body stiffness. Like maybe get him home tonight.
Johnny, it's the NHL. Out. You got to get on a plane and you got to fly to the city. I don't get it.
Because Hildebeest has played awesome and better than Joseph Woll so far this year, and why not play him an extra game?
Well, that's a different conversation.
I'm all for that.
Reason,
but the idea of, he had to get on a plane last night and we're not sure about the stiffness, when are you ever going to be ready for the NHL if that's the case? Like
St. Louis against his hometown team on Thursday. That's when he'll be ready.
Well, if
on a full day's
I hear you, but if I'm Joseph Woll, man, I would want to go in and say, I want to play in Columbus. Like, play me now. I got to get in the net because I'm watching this Anthony Stolarz steal the hearts of Leaf fans, Johnny. Like, you saw it last night. People are chanting this guy's name. He's the definitive number one. Craig, you were on with Jay last night, and I agree with your assessment. That's their number one goalie right now. There's a number. It's not 1A, 1B. There's a number 1 and a number 2 until Joseph Woll or Dennis Hildeby prove otherwise. Or I guess Stolarz comes back to earth. But if he keeps playing like this, man, it's not going to be a tandem, and nor should it be.
No, he won't play like this the whole year.
Sure.
But I did, just after last night, I did look at the numbers. Okay, last year, first start, he averaged like 0.8 goal save above expected. So every game he scored, he stopped about 0.8 more shots than he should. That was best in the league per start. He was the best in the league, Anthony Stolarz, last year. So you're thinking, well, even this year he's gonna take a step back from that, clearly, which would still be great if he could get down to 0.2 or 0.3. That would still be one of the best in the league. So far this year, he's at 1. He's actually better than he was last year. So I think at some point he will cool off a little bit.
Yeah.
But for now, you're right. Like, there's no doubt. If there's a big game and they're both healthy, you know who's playing. If there's a rotation that needs to be established to cater to one guy over the other, you know who's getting catered to. It's Stolarz because he's played well enough to warrant that. And, that scrape save off the goal line was a pivotal moment in the game when they had the 5-on-3. It could have gone a different way, could have made the game a little bit tighter. Like, he's been awesome. Like, straight up, he's been 1 goal, 2 goal, 2 goal, 2 goal. Like, you're going to win a lot of games if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs and you give up two or fewer, because you're going to score. You're going to score 3 or more virtually every single night. So Stolarz, what can you say? It's early, incredibly early. That's all you can say. Other than that, he has been magnificent, incredible.
Yeah, and as we all know, I mean, smaller sample size last year. He was terrific last year in the league when you look at his numbers and everything that went with it. But at the same, Joseph, like all this discussion about Joseph Woll, it's not like it's Patrick Waugh who's been injured and he's coming back to the net. Joseph Woll has to show that he's going to go compete for that spot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to
He's got to play to do that.
Well, the first thing, before you can compete, you got to get into the mindset that I'm going to get in there and play. Stolarz is showing no signs that, like, he's ready to give that net up. And I don't think he will.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, that would be good news. I mean, if he plays well enough that he doesn't, that's good news.
That's a great win for the Leafs. Yep.
The reason why Woll is sort of talked about the way he is, when you don't factor in he's played so infrequently in his career, is that when he's played, he's generally been quite good.
Yep.
And he's got the contract, right? Like, he's got the bigger contract that they committed to him because they see him as the starter trying to lock in value the next couple of years after this one. We'll see. I mean, I think the reason they got Stolarz is because they wanted to have another option, and they got a really good one who's playing lights out good.
If you were playing the Tampa Bay Lightning and Vasilevsky was in net, would he still scare you the way he did 3 or 4 years ago, or would you be adjusting your opinion of him based on the way he's played the last couple of years?
he scares you with his reputation, Hayes, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's like if you're grown up and you go watch one of the horror movies from a childhood, like you're thinking you might be scared, then maybe you get in there, you're like, it's not quite as scary as I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's sort of the analogy I would draw. Like, his resume and his success would have your attention, but then if you dug in, you're like, okay, well, he hasn't been as good post back surgery as he's gotten to be 30 years old as he was prior to. Now, I don't know if that intimidation factor, how you want to rank that, but that's the reality. And the more moments where he is not amongst the league leaders in wins and saves and save percentage and all the rest of it, when he doesn't go deep and win every elimination game in the playoffs because they don't play in as many, that reputation continues to fall off from its peak. Even though he's a Hall of Famer already, it's still not going to be quite what it once was. And I think that's who he is as a goalie. Like, he's not what he once was. Doesn't mean he's not good. He's just not as good as he once was. And I think that's the reality for him and for Tampa. And they got to appreciate that. He probably can't play 65 games anymore. He probably has to play a little bit less, even though they don't want to. But they don't ever have a backup goalie down there. They always have a guy who can play like 12 games. This Jonas Johansson is not, he's not Anthony Stolarz as a backup to Bobrovsky, right? Like, he's not that. So they're in a bit of a dilemma there. But no, he's a bit older. He's a bit banged up. He's not quite what he once was.
I'll also add this. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs really took advantage of him 2 years ago in the playoffs and exposed him. And then they beat him like they did last night. And so he might not have the same intimidating factor to the Toronto Maple Leafs as his overall aura is around the league. And Toronto, I think that they broke him to a certain extent in that playoff 2 years ago.
Yeah, he gave up a ton of goals, and a ton of goals and leads in that series, and yeah, it hasn't been the same since.
Not talked about very much because of all the other greatness he's had, but he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't very good in that series.
No, he wasn't.
Well, you remember Derek Lalonde went on and said they had the Leafs had
shoot from outside, and exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sure that went over well with Coop and the boys. I'm sure they love that.
Johnny, I know last week we talked about the power play, and I think I've broken it down to one simple kind of fundamental: is they're just not. Like, you see Kucherov with the amount of touches and where he gets it. He is the threat. So it's like the puck is going to the threat, and he can either shoot it, and everyone's so afraid of his passes, the shot might be available, but he's the threat, and it's established, and things can work through that. They just haven't established the threat, which is Auston Matthews shoots the puck basically better than anyone in the world, and I think they have to get to that. Him and Nylander shooting the puck to be that threat. And then things can open up around it.
Yeah. I mean, the power play, they have 3 goals in the last 3 games, but getting them off the rush is an option too, right? Like, take it if it's there. Don't have to set right up. But you're right. It's different because Matthews is both the scoring threat, but also the facilitator. I mean, Kucherov could be a little bit, but Point's probably more the scoring threat than Kucherov. Yeah, I mean, I think they're so fluid, in the way they move around when they're on the power play. Like if you think Matthews is a shooting threat, where does Matthews stand on the power play?
Right on the top of the right dot, Johnny. I know we don't really agree on this, but I think there's almost too much movement, like skating, going up and down. It's like it's unnecessary. It's empty calorie movement when you're just skating and going closer to a penalty killer. Like Alex Ovechkin, and he's a case that's just he's on his own, but he stands there and he's the ultimate threat. He just hammers bombs from that one spot. Just the skating up and back and stopping and starting, you're just making life easy on the penalty killers. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I was getting to. Always like for if it's Austin's option 1, trigger man 1, you're not exactly sure as a person who watches them all the time. Like, is he going to stand over on a strong side, top of the circle? Is he going to be more in the slot sometimes? Sometimes he's over on his offside. Like, they do move around a lot, which is okay, but I think like their baseline structure might be still a little too loose. Where when they get in the offensive zone, they still are, and they're kind of making it up as they go, which they can. But yeah, it's a lot's gone right for Toronto. They've played really relatively well to start this year.
Yeah,
new additions have been great. Goaltending has been great. Goals against have been spectacular. The top guy, like William Nylander, has got 5 goals in 6 games. Like, The top guys are, Mitch Marner's got 7 points in 6 games. Like, guys are doing sort of the things you want them to do. If you're going to focus on an area that's been a problem, well, there's 2 to me. One is the power play, and 2 is they take too many penalties. And so both non-sort of 5-on-5 stuff. But yeah, like the power play hasn't been as good as they want it to be.
16 games in the NHL tonight. Which team loses tonight that would cause the biggest stir?
Nashville.
Like, it's Nashville if they're 0-6?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Like every time.
They got Boston tonight, too.
They got, right. Like,
yeah.
Can we not just get San Jose? Like, where's San Jose? We need a win. Like, give me the worst team. I don't want a team I get to deserve it with. I don't want someone who gets my attention. I want the worst team in the league because that's where I need a win.
Mm-hmm.
Every single game that goes by now, if Nashville doesn't win, and they may win tonight, and it will be a non-factor. But if they don't, Hayes, pressure mounts.
Johnny, no team has started 0-5 and made the playoffs. The great Jay Onrait and Craig Button talked about that last night.
That's not since the 0-4 work stoppage, I think, it's the last 20 years. So, yeah. So I think it's just – and when you couple that, guys, with the fact that they were just having the bouquets lofted at them for winning the offseason. They were the champions of the offseason, and here they are. Now they're going to have to do something no team has ever done, come back for 0-5. And so, yeah, tonight Nashville would be the one I'm looking at.
I got to ask this question, and I'm going to be asked the question if they lose tonight. And I think Andrew Burnett's a good coach, but a loss tonight, does that put Barry Trotz right into the spotlight as –
You think he put himself as a coach, pull Lou Lamoriello?
He might be told to go and coach.
That might be an ownership thing.
Yeah.
You signed all these guys, and look what happened. You get behind there.
And remember, he bought out Duchesne and Johansson and made maneuvers with those guys to say we're going in a different direction. I think Andrew's a good coach. Sometimes you run into a situation where you got to do something, and what can you do?
Oof.
Well, Jay Woodcroft's a good coach, and he got fired after they struggled early, and the team took off. So, it's not unprecedented. I think Andrew Burnett's an excellent coach.
Yeah.
He's a really smart guy when you talk to him.
Agreed.
I don't think Trotz would want to go there. Now, if it's not his decision, it's not his decision. What are you going to do? But I still think he wouldn't get there just yet, Craig. I think even if they lose tonight, I think there are probably 5 more games. And then, if they're 1-9, that's almost the season because they're not going to win 18 in a row again, right? Like, not like last year. It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
So, you can't count on that kind of comeback. So the year could be, could the year be lost by Halloween? That seems crazy for Nashville, but it's not out of the question.
It's got like 2013 Blue Jay vibes with, Jose Reyes and R.A. Dickey, and you win the offseason, and then it didn't jive. Like it just didn't, it never got going.
Sometimes.
It happens sometimes where you bring in all these new pieces, veteran guys, all capable, all winners, and they just never got off the mat.
I'm blaming myself. I don't believe in jinxes. But last year I said, I'm all in on Ottawa. I said, everybody should be worried about Ottawa. We saw what happened there. I was one of those people, all the bouquets I was throwing towards
all
Nashville.
Over Nashville.
And now again, like somebody's going to tell me, shut up, Craig. Just
stop talking about my team. Please carve my team.
Leave us alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Please criticize us. We'd prefer it. All right, Johnny. Enjoy it tonight in Columbus.
All right, boys. Enjoy the night of hockey.
Thanks, Mike.
There's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst from Columbus, ahead of the Leaf game tonight. Joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Sounds like you'll be talking Dennis Hildeby on the panel tonight because Joseph Woll is going to remain in Toronto for a hometown team on Thursday night. That to me is surprising. Why wouldn't you play Stolarz on Thursday?
Guys, I'm doing it.
I know. Be a good. Don't.
No, I'm doing a new thing. I can't.
Positive Tuesday.
I can't talk about the goalie. Any goalie in the league.
Well, Allmark's not going tonight. It sounds like Allmark got to Utah and it
I just can't imagine being the coach where it's like, you're good to go tomorrow. Let's
gotta have you. No,
fire up a great road trip starting in Utah, and then in the morning he's having a coffee and he goes, I ain't going tonight.
No.
I would lose my marbles.
What's the area code in Belleville? Get somebody up here.
Jimmy McLennan told a story. And so we had him. You'll remember Manny Fernandez.
Yeah,
he was a pretty darn good goaltender. Well, his uncle was Jacques Lemaire, and so Manny at times could find a reason not to play a game. And Jamie was saying he was the backup in Minnesota, and he said to Jacques, he says, "Yeah, I don't think I'm playing tonight." He goes, "You better go get a nap. You're playing tonight."
Yeah, you're playing.
That's the only way to do it.
Someone's got to
ask Noodles about it.
I've heard this story. I know, or Jacques Lemaire's like, he's playing.
Yeah.
Like you're not playing. He's playing. Well, We'll see what happens
Noodles
tonight.
must have felt great when a grown-ass man was yelling at another guy that he was playing ahead of
Instead of
Noodles.
you. Don't take a nap. You're not playing. Don't take a nap. You're not
I
playing.
don't think Jamie ever took a nap.
I'm not sure he did. He
went
doesn't
to the
seem like a
movie
nap
theater.
guy.
He went to the movie theater.
Generally, that's what he would do. All right, panel night tonight. Have a good one. Say hi to everyone over there. Leafs Columbus on TSN. Craig, you're going to be doing a role play for us. Role play level of concern, certain GMs around the league.
Okay.
We'll get to that. We'll do that next. All right, Mark Masters will join us from Columbus. We do have some updates here from Craig Berube, who just spoke with the media. Dennis Hildeby will play tonight, Craig. So Joseph Woll's not going. And David Kampf will be a healthy scratch tonight. David Kampf coming out. Ryan Reeves going back into the lineup. That's interesting. He's got a few years left at $2.5 million.
But
hasn't played great, though.
You know, one of the things I learned this from Bob Gainey. He said, once you sign a player, you got to just get past the contract and just say, this is what we have.
Mm-hmm.
Get the best you can out of the player, and then make sure what your decisions you're making are the best for the team. Don't get concerned about the contract. And I think that's, you know, not every player is going to perform at the level of the contract that you expect to, but that doesn't mean you turn your back on the player. But you got to manage your team in the proper way, and you got to allow the coach to do that. That's the key part here. So if Craig Berube starts thinking, well, he's got a contract, you know, I got to play him. No. If you don't feel he's the guy that's the right guy for the lineup tonight, you don't play him.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because
Max Patch, you're ready.
That's right.
And
Ryan Reeves been around a long time.
Exactly.
You're not playing.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. And I
Good
would
teams function along those lines.
Right, and they have been consistently saying that is going to be their plan. Like they gave Liljegren a game, you're coming out. He's been here for years.
Yeah.
Drafted, developed by the team. He's been in the system for years. Not playing. I thought Timmins played well last night.
I did too. You know, I've watched Connor play for a lot of years. When Connor's playing on his toes, that goal where he jumped up and he just led the attack.
Mm-hmm.
When he's playing on his toes, he's because he's a smart player.
Yeah.
When he ends up playing a little bit back on his heels, a little bit tentative, he's not the same player. I liked what he
played well last night.
Yeah, he did.
Got some size. He's had injury issues throughout his career, really, right? And stay healthy, take advantage of an opportunity, and so we'll get more into that with Mark Masters. Confirming deny still to come. Al's brother will have his second clue of the week as to where he is in the city with Leaf tickets. We play role play level of concern on this show. I'm going to offer you up a role to play.
Okay.
GM's in the league, and then I'm going to give you a scenario featuring a player, and you give me your Craig's list in terms of your level of concern. All right, you can take whichever way you choose.
I get to be that GM?
You get to be that GM.
Okay.
So let me begin with the GM of the Tampa Bay Lightning. You are playing the role of Julian Brisebois. What is your level of concern that Andrei Vasilevsky will not return to his Hall of Fame form from a couple of years ago?
I'd say it's a 6, and it's a 6 based on this criteria. And we just heard Mike Johnson say it. He can't play the same number of games. Mm-hmm. So my level of concern is high if you're going to keep him in that same situation. So if I'm Julian, I need to go get a real capable goalie that can play 25, 30 games at a minimum.
Yeah.
That's what I need to do because Johansson's not the answer to that. And now you're stressing out Vasilevsky, and now you're expecting him to be something at this stage of his career after the injury and the back surgery that I don't think is reasonable to expect.
I totally agree with that assessment. This guy has played so much hockey, and it was in such a condensed amount of time. Yep. He played more hockey in a shorter period of time than anyone in the history of the game because of the COVID years, because of the bubble, and he played every single night, and then they came back, and they went back to the Cup final. Like, they went to 3 straight Cup finals. He played every single night, and it was condensed, and it was quick, and he was unbelievable. That 3-year run was truly one of the great runs in NHL history.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. He's already a Hall of Famer. He's one of the great goalies, in my opinion, of all time, based on what he did in those 3 runs. But I think you said exactly what needs to be said here. They need to make sure he's prepared for the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're going to make it. You got to make sure he's at 100% come playoff time. And he can't start 60 games and do that.
No way.
There's no chance he can do that. All right, you're playing the role of Stan Bowman, the GM of the Edmonton Oilers. What is your level of concern with your team's defensive play early in the season?
Yeah, you know where I think a big problem with their defensive play has been with their forwards. Their forwards have not been very good defensively. They haven't been. They've been giving away pucks, and then in their own zone. I mean, I go back to a couple of games against Calgary. Rasmus Anderson scores a goal.
Oof.
He just dances Zach Hyman and Connor McDavid like they were in some kind of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And then the other day they're playing a really good game against Dallas.
I liked their game through two periods.
I thought it was excellent. You know, Stetcher takes the penalty, score on the power play. Well, now it's 1-0. You're still in the game. And Connor McDavid making a play in the offensive zone, you're not going to tell Connor McDavid not to make a play in the offensive zone. You go, but when the puck got turned over, I'll tell you what, Connor McDavid didn't turn on the Jets.
Right.
And then and he's standing within an arm's length of Matt Duchene, and that second goal was a backbreaker. Mm-hmm. So I think a big part of their defensive problems have been on their forwards. You know, I can go back to Podkolzin in game 1, Jeff Skinner in another game. So, we know their blue line is not very good. Like, we know it isn't. Like, Ekholm and Bouchard and Nurse has played really well this year. We know they have to improve the blue line. Stan Bowman knows that. But to me, my level of concern is about, hey, you forwards, you need to be a lot better.
Yeah.
Because you haven't been.
Best players on the team, too, doing
Bingo.
it, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Kyle Dubas, you're playing the role of the Penguins GM. What is your level of concern Mike Sullivan may be losing the room with the Pens the way that they've been playing? The last couple of years, he's been there a long time. Those back-to-back Cups, Craig, that's almost 8 years ago.
It's a question and certainly something that Kyle has to consider. And right now, the Pittsburgh Penguins are not a good team. Mm-hmm. They're a middle-of-the-pack team. What does middle-of-the-pack
Based on
mean?
talent and depth, you're saying.
But they're not. They're not fast. They're
right.
They got holes that get magnified. And certainly, I think Kyle knows where they are. I think Mike Sullivan. And it may be time for a new voice. It just may be time for a new voice. Mike Sullivan's a terrific coach. Yeah. I think Mike Sullivan's a Hall of Famer. And it doesn't mean that because you've had so much success and just because you're good, sometimes the team just needs a change. I'll tell you a story. I asked Bob Gainey this question. He stepped down as coach in Dallas, and I asked him, I said, you were the GM. What made you step down? He goes, a coach has to go in every day and sell. You're selling players on giving up a little bit of their individuality for the team. You're trying to impress that this is what we can do as a team. You're selling every day. He said, so you're going in and you know what you're trying to do. You see the look. He goes, I went in. I looked Neil Broughton. I was looking at him in the eyes. He goes, Neil wasn't buying anymore. And he says, if Neil ain't buying, it's time for a change. And, I mean, that's self-awareness on Bob's part. And I just think that's where Kyle finds. So to answer your question, I think it has to be high on the list.
I agree with you. And I listen, Mike Sullivan, he's been a great coach. He's a Stanley Cup winning coach. If he were to become available, he'd probably pull a Paul Maurice and go somewhere else and immediately float boats somewhere else.
Yep.
But it's a unique scenario because the contract he's got, he was involved in bringing Dubas in some way with the Fenway Group, which is a really unique process. But I saw one of their media members in Pittsburgh tweeting about it yesterday, that the game in Winnipeg that they spotted, because you mentioned Neil Broughton, they spotted Sid with a lazy change. In particular, he isolated that, said it was just really strange to see Sid with a lazy change in a tight game. And they're like, that might be a Neil Broughton scenario. And that's Sid, which is shocking because of who he is and how detail-oriented he is. And he understands everything he does is going to have an impact on what everyone else is doing. But that's the kind of stuff, like if you're a head coach and you see that, whether it's live or on tape, you might be like, this is troublesome. If you're the GM, too, and you're watching that. Like, what's going on here on the bench when our best player is, not hauling ass to change on the fly here? That's like core hockey 101.
And Lazy and Sidney Crosby are never in the same sentence.
Never.
Ever. And so Bob was the GM and he was the coach. And as the GM and the self-awareness as a coach, he recognized that, okay, we need a different voice in here. Mm-hmm. And that's Ken Hitchcock came in, and certainly we
rest
know what
is history. You win a cup.
There is. But again, I think it's right there right now.
I think, again, it's not that Mike Sullivan is the issue. And like you said, this is not a cup contending team, and it's early in the year, but he's been there a long time. Guys, you're there for a long time. It's tough to stay on it. It's very tough to do.
Well, when you think about Belichick for 20 years in New England, and you think about Al Arbor, and Bill Torrey told me this many years ago. He said to me, he goes, our teams were really good and we were losing out in the playoffs. He goes, did I think about making a coaching change? Yeah, but I kept coming back. There's nobody better than Al. Mm-hmm. And he said, and then we won the 4 in a row. We lost the 5th year in the Stanley Cup final. He goes, I don't know if in today's world, he told me this about 10 years ago. He said, I don't know if we could do that in today's world. like with respect to
right how much
pressures.
noise comes with it, and the way that the hockey world is reported on now, and fans and their voices and all that kind of stuff. It's much louder.
Yep.
All right, let me get to Patrick Allvin here, the GM of the Vancouver Canucks. You're playing the role of Patrick Allvin. What is your level of concern this Elias Pettersson experience is not playing out so well since that contract being signed?
Well, it happened before the contract too. So you gloss over it. I guess I'll answer the question first. High.
Yes, it has
9
to be.
or 10 on the concern scale.
It's wild watching him play right now.
So it is wild because we know he's way more talented than what we're seeing. We know he's way more capable than what he's been able to produce. And certainly when you have a player that you've committed to at those dollars for that term, you got to find a way to get him back to a place where he can get those skills on display, which are ultimately going to help the team. But right now, the questions surrounding Elias Pettersson are very, very long. And certainly Patrick Allvin has to be spending, I would probably say, if not every single waking hour thinking about Elias Pettersson, 90% of every waking hour figuring out what do we have to do, what do I have to do to help Elias Pettersson, what do we do as an organization?
I would think the bells are going off throughout the organization.
Yeah.
Like if you're Jim Rutherford, if you're the owner, if you're Rick Tocchet, he's such a good player. And you know what he's capable of. It's not like he's magically forgotten how to play. It's not like he suffered some catastrophic injury and you don't think he can return to the way he was. Nothing tangible has happened to Pettersson. Like nothing that you can pinpoint and say, because the first 50 games of last season, he was one of the 7 or 8 best players in the league. He had a phenomenal season. And, his numbers speak for themselves in terms of what he's done for the most part throughout his career. And it's snowballing here where every game he goes without registering a goal on, even strength goal or putting up multiple points. We're just looking like a guy who's dominant, worthy of 11.6 per year. It just gets louder and louder and louder.
Well, imagine how loud it is for Elias.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, he's the guy that's got to figure this out ultimately. Yeah. You're a professional that's getting paid. You're one of the 10 highest paid players in the world.
Yeah, and you know how, but 50-plus games now. I mean, now we're getting into a longer stretch here, and that's what's got to be the biggest concern. Because you say, okay, contracts off the table, okay, what happened in that stretch? Let's get going. It's a fresh start. The fresh start
start was opening night this year.
Exactly.
Like you got your offseason where the team got into the second round, had a great run, almost got Edmonton without you contributing whatsoever. Your fresh start was camp and the first night of the season. And now we're 2 weeks in, and it's like, what's going on with Petey here? Yeah. It's a wild story, man. And that market, you know how they are. Like they loved the way things played out last year, as they should. It was an incredible season for them. But this Pettersson story just is clouding everything.
You made a really good point about they went to Game 7 versus the Edmonton Oilers. And that was without Elias Pettersson contributing.
Right.
And the power play was no good. Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be a hallmark of Elias Pettersson's game, right? So you think about it, an organization, and we've rewarded you. And quite frankly, what now has to happen? Elias Pettersson has to start making a return on the Vancouver Canucks investment in him. Full stop.
That's right. You've got to get bang for your buck.
Full
in
stop.
a cap world, you've got to get bang for your buck. Ideally, you exceed the number.
Yep.
That's how you win in the league.
11.6 for Elias Pettersson, 11.25 for William Nylander. It's not even close.
Right now, it's not even close. It's not. Mark Masters coming up from Columbus. And we got confirm or deny still to come as well. We got a couple of ball games tonight in the NBA. Bronny James making his professional debut. We'll get to that. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, so we have sent Al's brother out somewhere in the city with a pair of Leaf tickets. And we're giving out clues every day. Or Al's brother is announcing clues as to his whereabouts. And yesterday's clue, almost impossible to know where Al's brother is. Almost impossible, but he's hiding somewhere with a pair of Leaf tickets to see the Leafs play the Kraken Halloween night. Why don't we get to the second clue of the week, Al's brother?
All right, this is your second clue and a chance for you to win some Leafs and Kraken tickets on Halloween night. I can neither confirm or deny that there's a rumor that this establishment has toilets that play certain song when you're doing your business.
Any clue? Any idea where he might be?
Well, I know the song. The song is taking care of business.
Yes, I guess so. Queens Park. He's at Queens Park.
Yeah.
He was at City Hall.
When is the giveaway? When is it going to be announced?
By Thursday is the final clue. Cue to call is Friday. We'll give you the answer Friday. I have no idea where Al's brother is.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know where he is.
And I'm sure but wouldn't it be good if, like, well, I shouldn't say be good. This is my idea.
Yeah.
Is that he said, like, I'm at a place where there's zoo animals.
Yes.
And he's dressed up underneath the Carlton the Bear.
That's where you want him to be? We can work on that. We can send him anywhere, do anything.
Right there Thursday night.
Al's brother.
He's in the building Thursday night as Carlton the Bear.
I like that idea because Al's brother is a man that is willing to really put in effort for any bit.
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
There you go. Confirm or deny even got thrown in there. There you go. So we got confirm or deny coming up into the next hour. Mark Masters will join us. And again, you got to tune in tomorrow for another clue. And the first caller through on Friday with the correct location wins a pair of tickets. Leafs Kraken, October 31st. Full details at tsn1050.ca. Final hour coming up. Leafs Columbus and 15 other games in the NHL and the NBA tipping off tonight. That more still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.